Right.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing much. Let's pray over here. Are you at the conference? Is it that conference you're at just it's just tomorrow and Friday?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of there might be. I think it's on Saturday too. It's the web archiving one.
Yeah, the one I think Jess is there. Like you're gonna meet up.
This is there. Ed Summers is there. I think there'll be some other sort of the usual suspects. But if they can get in, I mean, the people who are traveling far, like I know they started canceling flights yesterday, and it's been snowing all morning, so we're expecting like 8 inches or something of snow.
Whoa.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. So as long as the subways are running, I'll be there.
What was I gonna say? Since you're probably, it sounds like you're not gonna be at the All-IG meeting tomorrow. Is there updates, particular updates you want me to talk about?
That's a good question. Let me think about it, and then I'll let you know offline.
Yeah.
Toli's there too. I think among you and Toli, they'll probably be everything.
Yeah.
But cool. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Greg.
I'm just going to ping Toli.
Hello?
Hey, Greg.
Hey. My video camera's not getting picked up right now. I'm not sure why, but I'm here.
Nice. All right, I pinged Toli, didn't hear from him, so why don't we just get started? Because we usually have a lot of stuff to talk about. So from the, here, I can quickly share my screen. So I don't have any Project Commander updates. The only updates I have will come later in the agenda. We can sort of hold to see if Toli is able to join.
I'm here. Sorry.
Why don't we just start? Whoops.
Hey, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Hey, no worries. Do you want to give any analyst updates?
Not sure there's much to update on. I think if you're following along in the channels and you're seeing sort of the activity reports in progress, collaboration with Politico, some public comment regarding the Clean Power Plan proposed repeal that I think is a really important document to produce, and then kind of ongoing research that Eric Noss is leading in terms of the term analysis. So I think steady but important work that's progressing, and it's pretty awesome that like three analysts are like writing reports and reviewing reports, or a total of like 5 are currently involved in the like report writing reviewing process. So that's exciting. And we'll be having a meeting to talk about like how we manage reporters and journalists. So if anyone's interested in just learning about that, nothing, no like really secret special sauce. I mean, I think you guys all know how it works, but slight look under the hood.
Right.
I think that's maybe later this week.
Cool. There's one thing I think I missed between the Politico and the research and text analysis.
Oh, the Clean Power Plan.
Oh, right.
Proposed repeal comment. So working with Marcy on that.
Right.
And Eric, I guess.
Great. Awesome. Kevin, any updates?
No, not for me. I hadn't really been doing any web monitoring coding this
Cool.
past week. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks. Yeah, so I just want to mention I put another PR up for the IA health check. I moved it from the moved it back to the web monitoring processing repo just because we're using some of the modules already existing there. So that's ready. I mean, it's it's not a high priority, but it's ready if Rob, if you want to look at that, or Kevin as well, or Greg for that matter too. And I can put a link into the agenda if you can find it. And then also, I've been archiving some of the meeting notes. And that's like
Can you please give it a name that says what it is?
Okay. Sure. Yeah, I've moved over most of the meeting notes to Google Drive. It's like half done. It's just a lot of clicking, so I'll try to finish that up this week. And then also, I'm going to try to finish up that post for the open source nonprofit stuff for the best practices work that we. Rob, are you still updating or?
No. I mean, pretty much just what's there is cleaning up stuff that was broken from removing page freezer support last week. Added error tracking with Sentry to the scraper, which is gloriously wonderful. We've had it in the DB for a while and it's been useful, but it's unbelievably useful for the scraper. You can see absolutely everything that goes wrong, and it gives me easy ways to see whether it was automatically remediated. And it's very, very happily validated my strategy for having overlapping scraping runs, because there are issues that just happen on Versionistas side that it automatically remediates by running a second time an hour later. And did some fixes related to IA in the database, did the IA importing work, so that's pending review, probably from nobody, because Dan doesn't have time anymore. And the jobs to fix up metadata from when we were failing to remove the Versionista metadata from raw content, and to fix up the hashes for old content are in flight and probably should be finishing during this meeting. So yeah, that's it.
And try to take a look at that cleanup from Internet Archive. Just give some comments for what little I know about how it all works together.
Yeah, that'd be great. Greg, I know you had been looking at stuff. Do you want to share what you were poking around with?
Yeah. Over the weekend, I was mostly looking through the Versionista scraping and trying to figure out how that all worked together, since there was a lot of talk about how Ansible played a role in keeping it all running. So I just wanted to understand better what it all meant together. It started looking to me like just a basic ETL stream job, so I was curious how quickly I could slap something together with some stream framework. So I did that over the weekend just for fun. As far as stuff that I've said I was going to do last week, I started looking at the kind of end caps on the version ranges. When we wanted to display something on the page, it was caret or dollar. I was under the impression that we already had some kind of difference aggregation, and we were just using versions, and we just had to create an alias for caret and dollar, but it looks like there's going to be creating the whole range process itself. So I started doing a little bit of that, and just to get something done quickly, I also did the allow archive hosts to break the or abort the seed script if it's not set, and I just wrote that this morning.
Cool. Any pockets or questions, or is it sort of you just?
I want to talk a bit about the caret dollar range versions, just to make sure I understand all that needs to be done for it. Since it looked like Kevin had done some work with the UI, I was trying to match them up so that they worked together.
I don't think well, so I'm not sure quite what you mean by match them up. So if you're saying make them work similarly or make them work together, because if it's the latter, we should not do that.
Okay, work similarly. I wanted to have consistency between them. I assumed that the UI would then be connecting back to the API in some useful way.
The reason we don't want the UI to make use of that functionality in the API is because we want the UI to try and always show canonical links. So you know what the actual IDs to show are.
Okay. So since the representation is a range and the IDs are currently just unique items, how do we want to extend that to a range in the API?
So that range is always identifying a change. And changes, when they're retrieved, usually use changed up between. And basically, in this case, you need to know the context of the ID. So it's a little bit weird, right? Because they're not pointing to particular versions, they're pointing to particular versions within a particular context, which is all versions or a page. So you need to know the context within which you are looking up those IDs. So it might be that what you just need to do is add a third context parameter to change that between. And then change that between, I imagine, would be responsible for doing that lookup. The other
so we're pulling into...
There's an API ID method that I think could also do some of that parsing, but I'm not sure if it's threaded through in all the right places. But changed up between is the lower level version of that actually does the lookup of a change, and you give it
and
from it too.
And for this particular one, let's see if I can find the pull request or the issue real quick in my tabs. Nope. There it is, number 221. That there's the pages versions, the versions, and as far as the relationship goes between versions and changes, we're going to be pulling the range of the changes, not the range of the versions. Because they're so similar, just from English, I'm not sure precisely the change versus version versus page.
So a change is specifically a range of two versions.
Okay.
So whenever you see UUID ... UUID, that is the idea of a change. And
Yes. Okay.
changes do also have their own UUID, but that's mostly really only for foreign key relationships within the database, and we generally try to avoid actually using that, and instead use the more descriptive from to. So a change is about a range of versions.
Okay.
If that helps.
And then the version then is just the individual change itself.
Better to think of a version as like a snapshot.
Okay.
So a version is what a page looks like at a point in time. It is a version of a page. We don't want there to be any concept of change or difference or whatever associated with a version, other than that we generally, but not as a rule, avoid recording a version if it would be exactly the same as the latest version.
Okay, so
the one that would immediately precede it.
In principle, we could calculate one from the other.
Yes, in principle, a change is always a relationship between two snapshotted versions, and diffs, the way you might want to look at what has changed between those two versions, is something that we always dynamically calculate, although we do caching. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of different ways to calculate it. There's no canonical change. There's no canonical way to say what's changed.
Okay, cool. That answers the organization of those structures a lot better for me. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
In which case, I'll just put that range then with the between on the changes and make that accessible for the version URL in the API.
Oh, gotcha.
Because it just says here in the issue that in versions/ID.
Right. Did I say that? I did say that. I was thinking it might be nice to have there, but I guess we could do it there too. Also,
if they're calculatable from each other, it makes sense to have access from a variety of locations.
Yeah, because the idea is that if you use them to identify a change, you had like $. All that really is, like, what UI does is probably a little overcomplicated.
I was just starting to read that code last night, and I'm like, this is more than I was biting off to chew.
Yeah, there was a discussion about breaking that down to something similar, a little bit more concrete for each piece, and that didn't actually wind up happening. I think on the DB side, if you're trying to keep it simple, it's better to look at a change ID is really just a version ID ... another version ID. And all we're doing is now saying that a version ID can be a UUID or a caret or a $. It doesn't matter where it is, whether it's where you'd use a version ID or where you'd use a version ID within a change ID. And it doesn't matter whether it's the first one or the last one, just caret stands for the first version in whatever context you're talking about. And so better to, when you're working with a version, it's really straightforward, right? You have pages / page ID / versions / caret means translate that caret to the first version of this context, which is this page. Or if you were just at straight /versions / caret, the context would be all versions. So it'd just be the very first recorded version. And the time you're talking about there should be the capture time, not the created at time, just to be clear. And then for a change, all you really want to do is break it apart. It's from ... to, and then say, apply the same rules to figuring out from that you would have applied to figure out what version ID you would use otherwise in the like just one version context, right? So
Okay.
You're again saying like, is this change of all changes, or is it within the context of a particular page, and then use that to resolve what the caret means in terms of versions, and then substitute that UUID back into UUID dot dot UUID, and then it's all the same process that we currently have from there forward. Does that make sense?
Okay. I was following you up until the last few sentences.
So with the change, you basically split it on the dot dot and treat either end the same way as you treat an individual version.
Yeah.
So you should break it all down to look up a version ID, or rather look up a version record and or its ID based on the context you're looking within, and whether it's a caret, a dollar, or an actual UUID.
Okay.
And so if you're looking up a single version, that's straightforward. If you're looking up a change, you just split on the dot dot and then look up each of those single versions, and then ask for the change between those two versions. The same as right now when the code breaks it out from the dot dot, it asks for change dot between those two IDs.
Okay. Should we have a representation for just the string dot dot as like the entire range? Usually it's caret dollar, but
no, dot dot should be disallowed, because if you have blank dot dot ID, that means the version immediately prior to, and if you have ID dot dot, that means the version immediately proceeds.
So like directory semantics for that. Okay.
Well, no, because it's not, because you can have it after, right? And that means the next one, rather than.
Do we have a symbolic representation for after?
No. So what I'm saying is like the reason you can't have blank dot dot blank is because the blank actually means the one either immediately before or after the one that you identified. So you can't say the one immediately before the one that comes after the one immediately before it.
Seems a little silly.
Yeah. So that's why we can't allow just dot dot.
Okay.
Because a blank space is actually referential to the other version in the ID.
Got it. Okay.
It's probably bad.
The other thing that I had that was not related to the page version is while I'm setting up my system, there are 3 tests that fail for me, which I mentioned last week, and I was trying to get through them. And I was just doing some light debugging for it. I put it away, so I don't remember all the details that I had. But it was basically leading me to one database query on the page controller in the version 0 API.
Aha, yes.
And it was the ordering of the pages that came back, and the test was supposed to show that they are ordered, and they did not order correctly when I would just give it the good old puts debugger, and just trying to figure out what I was doing wrong in my setup, or if it was just a more deeply nested problem in the query. And the query looked like it was fairly spread out in the controller, and there's a lot going on in there. So I didn't really want to try to run all the way down that rabbit hole yet. Just bring it up as, has this been a problem before, or do I have to do something special with my setup? Because I was just going with a classic Rails setup, clone the repository, start running the migration scripts, getting initialized that way. I was just assuming it should come up and the tests should populate seeds for their individual tests, but maybe I'm missing something.
There shouldn't be anything special.
Okay.
Nobody else has reported issues with it, but I'm not sure very many other people are running the tests. They are working fine in CI, so maybe look at what the circle config is doing.
Okay.
But also like post what you're hitting in Slack, and we'll
Yeah, I'll do
work through
that after the call.
Yeah. Greg, I could work with you and maybe try to reproduce the setup on my machine, and we
Okay.
can see if I'm getting the same errors.
Yeah.
Happy to do that.
Well, I do have a call that I have to take immediately after this meeting, but I could talk to you after that or tomorrow.
Yeah. Whenever you're free, I'll make myself available.
Okay, cool.
Great. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, great. I also wanted to ask quickly, Rob. I saw some changes to 86, the bulk importing.
like a issue or PR?
Sorry, the issue. Yeah, sorry, issue 86 in processing.
Processing.
Here, I'll throw it in the chat.
So what's the?
This was the bulk importing script from the Internet Archive, right? Is that the same issue?
Right.
Okay.
So the PR that's attached to it is 174.
Okay. Great. Right. I guess we. Okay. So I guess the issue is that there's really no one to do sort of a review of it, right?
Right.
So why don't we can take it offline, but let's discuss what we should do while Dan is out, just so that stuff isn't totally, sort of get stuck in stasis while this is happening, while he's out.
Well, I assume we'll just go through the same process we have always gone through when there's not somebody around to review something, which is that it sits for at least 3 days, and anybody who wants to take a crack at it is free to and give feedback. And if there's no person who is really good for reviewing it, nobody has at that point in time, then we merge it, as long as tests are green.
Okay, that works. I wasn't sure if that was a sort of a codified process or not, but that sounds reasonable to me, given.
It's not codified, but it's the process that we've been following since the start, pretty much.
So it can be codified by default. Cool. All right, that's good to know. Thanks. Great. And then just quickly, Dan put some ideas for the page freezer retrospective post. I don't know, Rob, if you wanted to add anything to that.
He pretty much said the same thing I already said about it several weeks ago.
Rob had added stuff at the very beginning.
Okay, so then do we want to just give it a quick copy edit and then send it over, or is it?
I think Dan said he still had more to say. He just like threw out some ideas, but he still had more to say, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I can like just put something together real fast, just so we have like a draft, and then just add anything additional. How about that?
Sure. That works. And then just to quickly mention, Tolly and I are going to be talking right after this call about the terms of use draft that we got from the Cyberluck Clinic. And so hopefully we'll align on that and then start sharing other people's input and then have a draft ready. It's a little premature, but it'll be good to have something in place when we need it. Cool. Is there anything else that people
I
want
had
to?
one quick thing.
Yep. Sure.
Since a lot of the people here were doing the best practices, I think I think Andrew was assigned one component, and we haven't like heard much from him since then. Is that something? It was like the whole like part about you know, not freaking out and being responsible, and there's like different examples of like the journalists doing what, you know, there's like the Twitter thing and all that stuff. So I wasn't there for a lot of it, but I just remember that there's a component.
Right, he was assigned something. We can nudge him again to I think it's all in his head. He just needs to sort of put it down.
Yeah, I just didn't remember like the exact context of what it was he had to produce, so I just wanted to like ask and prod.
Right. Yeah.
Thing has happened.
Was there like a deadline for that you all were trying to compile by?
Like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We can.
So, and some of that language is already in the that like disclaimer that we wrote up for the sharing scanner, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like the welcome email, I think it seemed like a lot of it was there. I think the additional part was just like, these are the examples of like overreacting or whatever, and please like don't try to do this.
Okay. Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, okay, yeah, I don't know about, I'm not looped in on the conversations, but seems like an important thing.
Sounds good. We can.
There might have been some about it on the Edu channel. I think is it. What's the
Well,
name?
I should say I may be looped in, but I'm not tracking it.
Right. What I'm saying is, like, if you need to look it up, it's there. I don't think it's private. Anyway, I can't remember the name of it in Slack.
Yeah, there were two channels. There was like the best practices channel, and then there was sort of like a group chat going on that we tried to migrate into the best practices. So some of that might have been in the group chat.
Yeah, not sure. You're right. Could be.
But there's that working doc that people were filling in things, and I remember him being assigned to something. So we can, I think, also refer to that, maybe just to jog his memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I doubt. I mean, I think if you tell him that you're expecting it, I think he'll do it. I'm not sure that he knows about the deadline, or maybe he knows, but I missed it or something.
From what I remember the conversation, I think like it seemed like he thought it would be like this big thing where we were like trying to like really, it was like this whole big governance issue. Like, okay, this is exactly how people should use it. And that seemed like too much to write or too much to decide at the point. But I think we decided, I wish we had recorded these videos, but we didn't. That's the other bad thing. But then we decided it was more like, you know, what was a lot of it was said in that email, the scanner welcome email, but then also just really, it's just like, these are these examples, and try not to like fall into these patterns. Yeah. I'll look into the channel again and into the doc, and I can prod them. I'll look around. But I just wanted to see if people remembered specifically, because I missed out on a lot of the first meetings.
I think the main thing I remember, the last we talked about it, is in that archive chat link that you posted in the WebMon Best Practices channel. I think it's down near the end of that doc.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much what you just said, which is you know, like he thought he needed to do some giant thing, and we were like, no, we just need something concrete that we can all talk about, and then iterate on.
Okay. I'll give him a prod.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. I will talk to everyone later.
See you, everyone.
Bye.